Hello, Jennifer Brown.
Hello, Jenn T. Grace. How are you? Happy Monday.
Yeah, we were just saying that we're consistent. This is 2 weeks in a row, same time, same bat channel, which is exciting.
That is exciting. Good for us. Hard to have consistency in a pandemic, but we are managing. It's important.
It is. Yep, we are. So anything new in your world that you want to promote or mention prior to bringing on our guest, whom I'm very excited about today?
Oh, thank you, Jen. Yeah, so I know I mentioned this last time. Two things. We have a bunch of online learning programs coming up this year for different levels of DEI practitioners and advocates. So people who want to sharpen their skills and grow, and then those who want to or do this work professionally and get paid to do it. So please check out our website for course information, and that's jenniferbrownconsulting.com. And we will be putting up, we're launching actually tomorrow, a new cohort of what's called our DEI Foundations program, which is that baseline program. Sort of introductory. And then level 2 and level 3 are coming this year, which is more advanced for the practitioner or the aspiring practitioner, which is much more around strategy and less about sort of the internal work of like getting to know our own diversity stories and dimensions and all of that, which is a really critical part of every practitioner's baseline. But the levels 2 and levels 3 are much more about like doing the work in the organizational context. And then I have still our D&I community calls on Thursdays at noon Eastern. So those are free to attend. All you need to do is RSVP. And again, you can find that information on Jennifer Brown Consulting or also Jennifer Brown Speaks. So I have kind of a speaker dedicated and author dedicated website. But join us. And if you RSVP, you get the replay. So you can listen to it at your own leisure. You can get the chat log, which is always really fun. And come and join 150 amazing people, depending on the day, who are doing this work and network, right? Which is really important. That's often how we find our next job or how we find our collaborators. So yes, DEI community call, Thursdays, noon Eastern. Check out our websites. And thank you, Jen. What about you? What's happening for you? What are you launching?
Well, what's interesting is that the conversation that we will have to some degree is just around like staying connected. And I think when we say staying connected, we're thinking in like COVID terms. So I love that you just brought up your community call, because the thing that we've been consistently doing since the start of COVID is a writing group. So twice a week, we have a free writing group. So anyone who's just interested in getting the book out of their head that's been kind of like swirling in there for a long time, but they don't have the discipline or the accountability or whatever might be missing. We have Mondays at noon Eastern and Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern. And so it's just an opportunity to get together with other like-minded people, and it continues to grow, which is super exciting. So that's the thing that I wanted to share today, in addition to 7,000 other things that I always have going on, as do you. But I would rather spend our time talking to our guest, Ali, who I am going to pop in right now.
There Ali is.
How are you today? Oh, you're on mute. That's how we're doing today. That's
see, this is the thing. Like we were saying this earlier, no matter how many times I try and use a platform like this, I always forget to put myself off mute. It's a rule. I always assume that I'm on mute and then just always check, but I don't. Right. What I said was, hello, it's lovely to be here.
Hello.
And so you've already started the conversation off with a tip. Always assume you are on mute.
Yeah. Always assume that you're an idiot. No, I'm joking.
We're already teaching people. So let's have a conversation today. So for context, neither Jen nor I knew you prior to us having this conversation today, which makes it even more exciting, because a lot of times we're talking to people that we have some historical relationship with, so we kind of know where we want to go with the conversation. But today it's like, let's see where this takes us. So why don't we just kind of start with you just sharing a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then we will kind of navigate from there.
Very good question. And I have been spending a year trying to work that out. Who am I? What am I doing? Just under a year ago, I went freelance and started my own business, which was the product of about 10 years of trying to do two things at once. So I worked in the corporate sector for about 10 years in corporate communications, helping executives say nice things to people and present difficult things in a slightly more comfortable way. And as the side to that, I also performed comedy improvisation. So I was part of one of the UK's longest running queer improv groups called the Short and Girly Show. And we performed all over the UK, and it was a lot of fun, and I loved it with all my heart. And it got to about maybe 2 years ago, I thought, wouldn't it be magical if I could invent a job that combined all the things I love doing? So that was my mission. I spent about a year whilst working full time inventing a job for myself. And that's where I'm here today. So what I do is hopefully, my aim is to combine the beauty and weirdness of improv with the important things that individuals, teams and organizations need to learn. Joy is a word I use a lot because I think that if you make things joyful, you're more likely to understand and engage with them, even if they're difficult and a bit uncomfortable. If you do it with a bit of softness and gentle play, then it's much harder to be resistant.
I love joy. Just and I love the phrase about just kind of like something that brings you joy pre the Marie Kondo kind of explosion. But I think that's fantastic because I feel like not enough of us actually have something that brings us actual joy. And I think for some people, they don't even know they don't even know what it is that they would be looking at to see if it brings them joy or not, which I feel like is sad, but it's, responsibility to kind of show people the way.
Of course. And I think the big issue that we face for a lot of people, there's, whether you're a kind of queer person or not, there's a lot of stuff in the world, a lot of trauma, a lot of experiences that tell us, ignore what your gut is saying. Your gut is not correct. You should be productive and economically viable. And at some point, someone will give you a certificate for being so wonderfully productive and economically viable. And then happiness will happen. But the truth is, for me, that the happiness has to be right now. And there's a risk and a courage that I've had to find in order to go, I need to do something that pleases me and brings me joy daily, even if it's not huge amounts, because let's be honest, invoicing people sucks. That's not a joyful thing. But, I teach and I play with people and I call people. I get to hang out with people I really enjoy spending time with. And the kind of cognitive, intellectual part of trying to take a difficult subject and turn it into play, that pleases me. It really does.
That's so lovely. And, you're talking about the early days of being a business owner, right? The invoicing, the things, many, many things that don't bring joy, and then sort of that keep the lights on, so to speak, so that you can do the stuff that really lights you up. And clearly I can just imagine you in the room and the joy that you're bringing, and the space that you create. Tell us about what's the linkage between, I think, joy and play and learning about gender identity and expression? Like, how do you, and if you can encapsulate for us, I know it's hard because it's part of your teaching and it takes probably a while to set the container for it and what you do. But how can this be? I mean, I find it a joyful conversation because anything that enables us to get specific about identity, to me, is like, I always think about the thing that somebody's name is the most precious thing they can hear. And so when people say, well, I can't be bothered with someone's pronouns, and that's grammatically incorrect, I think to myself, you are depriving somebody of the most joyful thing that they could hear, which is to be correctly gendered.
Yeah.
It's so it's so sort of, I don't know, like, I wonder how you describe it, because I struggle with this too, to sort of make the case for why this is so critical to our feelings of belonging and our ability to thrive. And yes, your colleagues, your team members who may identify in a certain way, to sort of willfully say, I can't do that, or I'm uncomfortable, is putting ourselves first and not others' happiness first, right? And our convenience first, which is disgusting, but any between us, it's very frustrating. Like, how could we possibly make that argument? So I wonder how you articulate, why is this actually a joyful conversation?
God, I mean, first of all, I love that question because you just picked up on all the things I love talking about most. For me, not making an attempt, at least, to respect someone's pronouns is a bit like, Jenn, me meeting you and going, hi, I'm Ali. And you're like, hi, I'm Jenn. I'm like, You look like a Barbara. I'm really sorry. I know Jenn is your name and everything, but I'm just gonna have to call you Barbara because you just look so much like a Barbara. And then for the rest of the conversation, referring to you as Barbara, it's okay. I mean, it's not. It's just a basic dignity.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, there's almost an infinite variety of names that we learn, and there aren't that many pronouns. It's not a huge leap to remember them for people. Oh, I just knocked my camera. I'm so excited. So that's the thing. I think, you know, there's this element of if you can learn someone's name, you can learn someone's pronouns. It's as simple as that. And in for my own experience, I do think I have to blame improv for a lot. So if anybody's ever done improv before, the wonderful thing about improv is that in any given moment you could be a chicken or a greengrocer or the president, whatever you want to be. And in 5 minute space, you can be all of these things. And suddenly all of the societal constructs that you took for granted, like gender, and gender's a big one, completely disappear, or maybe not disappear, but certainly start to be deconstructed into their elemental parts. So what is masculinity? What is femininity? And how do we then combine all of these things in order to create our concept of man or woman? What can we take away from the concept of man that would make him no longer a man? What can we add to a man in order to make him woman? All of these things start to make you realize that gender is spectacularly complex and in no way something that exists in and of itself. It's just this weird concoction of societal things which have been mushed together, and then we hold people incredibly accountable to uphold those, even though they're completely, most of the time, made up. So improv, for me, it's just the best way of deconstructing anything that is based on assumption and isn't as fixed as we would like. Gender is a weird one because I think it scares people. I speak a lot about gender in a negative way, and I don't mean to, because I do love gender. I think it's a beautiful thing, but I do wonder if gender is one of those things that actually is a bit of a collective trauma. The way that people respond to not performing it right, toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, it scares people so much to get it wrong. And in improv, we can't do anything wrong, so it's a really safe space to explore things. So I guess that's where those two have been connected.
That's so good. I will never think about them the same. It's a metaphor, right? You're right. It is a sort of ridiculous and sort of endless pursuit. Gender norms, gender roles, and the confinement of that. Right.
And it's really bad for everyone. The quest for masculinity is really rubbish for men. I mean, in the UK, suicide is the biggest killer of men under 50. And I don't think that's in any small part due to the pressures of being a man and not talking about your feelings. Because I don't think having a certain set of chromosomes makes you inherently more prone to mental health conditions. I genuinely think that it's a societal pressure. And we know what gender does for women. It really is not good in many ways.
Not good. Hey, I'm dying to ask this question because this is my theory. I think those of us in the LGBTQ plus community, we straddle so many worlds, and we've done this work on a deep level. Like we've been rejected because of our expression of gender. We've been rejected because of the gender of the people we love and the relationships that we're in. And so I would never have understood all of this if I hadn't come out and loved the person I love and honored that love.
Yeah.
And stepped into this world that showed me this massive, like, parallel universe.
Yeah.
And then having to view all of this critically, you know, in the way I was programmed and what was expected of me. And it's just, again, it's such a tremendous gift. I would never give it up for anything. But I think that our inhabiting our bodies and our truth and our authenticity and loving who we love and standing up for that has also made us incredible teachers, not just of this topic, but I think teachers of all things kind of that need to be revisited. You know, the ability to hold the complexity and the nuance of something and break down boundaries is, frankly, I feel like one of the big one of the big things we're going to be working on in 2021. I mean, think about the way binaries impact like everything, work from home, work at the office, like whatever, like it's constantly, I always feel like I'm carving out like that new third way in the middle. And I do believe it's the way my brain has been trained because I've had to grapple with my own identity and how to encourage people to kind of come with me into this space that hasn't really been charted yet. And we are pioneers for so many reasons, but I also think we're like, the gift of being who we are has actually equipped us to be the kind of leaders and teachers that the world needs. And I wonder if you relate to that and how you kind of view your own skill set through that lens.
I mean, I think what you said is beautiful. I think it's so, I think anybody who grows up in a world where who you are is at odds with what the world is telling you is the right way to be, the level of self-analysis and reflection and interrogation that then has to take place in order to find a sense of really solid foundation-based identity is a much more complex process. And, part of me coming out as non-binary was part of that process. It's about an interrogation of who I am and what does it mean to be woman? What does it mean to be girl? Then, subsequently, what does it mean to be, for example, a lesbian? Or at what point do you qualify as lesbian? And this is the thing that makes me laugh so much, is these ideas of binaries, lesbian or not.
Right.
What's the tipping point? Where does the boundary around lesbian stop and start? When do we qualify? I know the old joke of the microwave. At what point are you part of that group? And the truth is, there is no consensus. These concepts are completely fabricated. And like you say, anything really, work from home, that's a fabricated thing. Why not blend? There's in-betweens everywhere. And I think when you're not in between, when you exist in the in-between, you can see that in other places around you more easily, perhaps.
Exactly.
I'm curious, this question is specific, but to both of you, because especially being UK and US and having this conversation, but you saying like, at what point, like, do you or do you not qualify as a lesbian?
Get your badge,
So my previous work was in consulting around specifically LGBTQ spaces. And I had name tags that said, hello, my name is, and then it would have a spot and it said, I'm a professional lesbian underneath them.
Fabulous.
And so, but what I learned is that identity no longer fits me. And that happened, that's been evolving for years. And so my question to the two of you is, because I just now say I'm queer because it's just so much more of an umbrella that many different, again, that gray area, because sexuality is a spectrum, gender is a spectrum, there's all the spectrums in between. However, at least here in the United States, and it very well might be the same in the UK, the word queer still has like a bitterness to it to many, many people. And I know previously when I would be teaching about this information, I would say like, I'm kind of like that weird cutoff point. And this was probably 5 years ago. So let's go back 5 years and say 35. So like if you're older than 35, now I think it's probably if you're older than 40, you might have some issues with the word. If you're younger with it, you just kind of embrace it. Is that the case in the UK? And do we think as a collective that word queer is just going to continue to be embraced to the degree that the holdouts that don't want to use that term eventually will kind of start to adapt to it because it's kind of like, well, it's really not much of a choice we have at this point. I don't know, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Ali, how about you first? I'm going to put you first.
So, I think controversially, I wish I had glasses now and I'd push them up. So I believe that creating categories is very important when you're trying to get rights for certain categories of people. So, for example, women's rights, you can only go into legislative spaces and ask for women's rights if you can define what a woman is. Very important. However, the truth of the matter is, if we're completely honest, that category is a complete legal falsehood. It doesn't exist. Category of woman doesn't exist. But when you're trying to get rights, it's very important. Now we've gone through, and in specific places, not across the world, we've gone through this process of identifying these categories of people who need extra protections or need equivalent protections. We're now coming out the other side of that, where we're interrogating what those categories mean. So if I'm a woman, do I deserve women's rights? Yes. But how do I tell if someone's a woman? Okay, that's a bit trickier.
And who gets to say?
Exactly. Who is in charge of what a woman is? And similarly, who is in charge of what a lesbian or a gay man is? Who's in charge of what a trans person is? And now we're at this sticking point. And I think this is where the crux, and in the UK, I'm not sure if it's the same in the US, we are in the midst of I don't know what word to use. It's not a debate because I don't want to underplay it. A fractious interaction, let's call it, between certain feminists and certain queer people, which is all because of the conflation or differences between sex and gender. Which is more important? Is woman a sex-based term, or is woman a gender-based term? As in, is it the bits and pieces that you've got, for want of a better phrase, or is it the social construct around that? And until we can sort that out, I don't see that argument coming to an end. The word queer, for me, is an umbrella term that covers all of those concepts. And I think it is the increased use of it is a reflection of the fact that, as you said, what is a lesbian? I came out as non-binary because lesbian didn't fit me. I thought that was the solution to all my problems. When I was 16, I was like, oh, now I understand. It's because I'm a lesbian. I was like, a few years later, I was like, hang on a sec, that doesn't work either. I'm actually having to remove parts of myself in order to fit that category. That's not right. And I think queer reflects the fact that we are moving to a almost like post-category based rights movement into this kind of free-flowing acceptance that it's much more complex than that. And this is the bit that's really important. On the shoulders of giants are we able to do that? And the lesbians and the feminists who fought for those rights deserve respect for what they did with those categories. But they also need to understand that we're moving beyond that now. And that's not scary. It is okay. Controversial, but that's
such a good
and if anybody's really interested in this, like, where would you point people who don't exactly know what you're talking about? Because I know about this that's going on in the UK. It's really intense. Like, what can you point people to? Like, we should know this is going on. This is really important for those of us in America because it is not in our face like it is for you.
Yeah. So I'd say there are a couple of resources in the UK. So I'd say Gendered Intelligence has some really, really good resources. They're a trans and non-binary charity based in the UK. There's also some excellent YouTubers. See me down with the kids. One of which I believe is called Jammy Dodger. And he is amazing. I will double check the name, but I can always post it or send it over to you afterwards. But let me have a look.
I find YouTube to be so much better in so many ways than the BS programming that we are told that we should be binge watching personally. And I also think that's because I have a child who all he does is watch YouTube. So I feel like I just kind of like morphed into his habits. But did you find the name?
Yeah, Jammy Dodger. I was right. I need to not question
Jammy, as in
Jammy. So Jammy Dodger, which again, I'll be upset if you don't have this in the US, is a delicious type of biscuit with jam in it, which you dip in your cup of tea of an afternoon.
We definitely do not.
Okay, well, I will send you some Jammy Dodgers then, because they are an absolute treat. So on YouTube, Jammy Dodger. And his YouTube videos are brilliant at succinctly interrogating the current situation when it comes to trans non-binary people and feminists, and how some of the language has become very vitriolic.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that.
I wish that we had more time in the day. I feel like we could go down 700 independent rabbit holes with you.
We haven't, we haven't even touched the surface. I love this. It's been such fun.
It's not even like a scratch in this. It's like a nick, like not even a scratch. But I feel like this has been such an awesome conversation, and I'm glad that we, met under the circumstances that we did, and we're able to just kind of pivot and be like, all right, let's do this morning. So, or this afternoon in your case. Awesome. So, how wants to know more about you, to work with you, whatever the things are, can you please tell people how they could find you?
Scream through your window. No. So Ali Hannon, I couldn't hear you. AliHannon.com is probably the best place to go. Yes. All of the things I do live there.
Yes, and I have the have it scrolling along the bottom right.
I've always wanted to do that.
There we go.
Now. Thank you. That's the gift of today. Thank you very much.
Yes. Very welcome. Well, thank you for joining us. This was fantastic. Jen, you and I will be back next week. I know we are doing our best to be consistent and come here every week, but you know, things happen from time to time. But
yes.
We shall be back next week with another awesome human being. And
yes, we will. Yes, we will. Stay safe, everybody, until then. And boy, are we counting down the days? That's all I'm going to say. But breathing.
My heart goes out to you.
Prayers for the country. Prayers.
We need to just breathe for the next 9 days and then really try to stay grounded on the 20th, because I think that's going to be
you've got this
survival.
Tricky day for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when I'm going to go into my cave, because I am a cave.
You have a cave?
I do. I'm a cave woman. It's a known fact, and I'm just going to go even not come back out.
Do you decorate? You have some nice cave person artwork on the walls?
I do. I had it custom made.
Oh my goodness me!
And do you club people and drag them into the cave, or have you moved away from doing that?
You're sharing my dating secrets.
Sorry. Tinder, watch out! New form of dating ahead of you.
Yes, I'm starting a new trend.
Lovely.
We'll
call it the old-fashioned way. Very, very old-fashioned.
Very old-fashioned.
Thank you so much. This has been a great way to start. At least start.
Really good. Good. Have a good night, Ali.